Following the launch of 1.0, every PMC requires an additional 1.5 million experience to reach level 42, which is of course the level required for max traders. So today we're going to take a look at how you can maximize your experience gains to get there a little bit quicker, as well as drop a few nuggets of knowledge to help you on your journey of escaping Tarkov. First things first, spend more time in your raids. Most of you already know, every single action you perform in the raid gives you some sort of experience, from looting a duffel bag to consuming that sweet mayo. Depending on the amount of hunger replenished or the amount and rarity of items inside of a container, experience will vary a little bit, but more time you spend in the raid, more of those actions you will perform and more experience you will end up accumulating. The biggest source of experience in your raids will be of course taking out enemies, but we will dive deeper into that in a few moments. By staying in the raids longer, you will end up accumulating more and more experience by fighting other players or scavs, which results in you healing, having to consume food and water, having to search containers, explore new areas, maybe do some surgeries, and all of that increases the amount of XP you gain in the raid, but most importantly, you have to survive in order to get the 50% XP bonus. Obviously, there's no point in risking your quest items. If you find something rare like Athletics, which you will need later for Therapist, or maybe you picked up that precious pocket watch and do not want to risk it, obviously focus on getting such items out over maximizing the experience gains. Also, do not forget about the defective wall. You need to mop your floors to reduce the XP penalty and eventually dismantle it altogether. So make sure you hold on to those fleece fabrics as it is required for mopping the floors. The wall starts causing trouble sometime after you build the water collector, just in case you wanted to know. As we all know, early wipes in Tarkov are always riddled with network issues due to the influx of new players. Fortunately, Gear Up Booster will help us deal with that. Gear Up also allows us to take advantage of less populated servers for easier raids. For example, if it's really late in the Asian servers, I can pick one of the servers from over there, from EU, and take advantage of the less contested raids due to the lower player count. Unfortunately, a lot of those servers also have set a ping limit, meaning finding one that suits you can be a little hard. That's where Gear Up Booster comes into play. Gear Up Booster's algorithms ensure that you take the shortest network transmission path, resulting in minimizing latency and helping reduce packet loss, which everybody knows has been a fairly big issue during most of the early wipes, and now with the influx of new and returning players for the 1.0 launch, will most likely happen again. Gear Up Booster is 100% safe to use. I have partnered with them before, and so have other big Tarkov creators. Check out the link in the pinned comment or the description to get yourself a free trial. Free trial can be activated by clicking the code/coupon on the homepage and entering the code FLINN. Thank you to Gear Up Booster for sponsoring today's video. So how do you maximize your in-raid experience? Like I said before, taking out enemies is one of the biggest sources of experience during your raids. Tougher the enemy, higher the experience gained. Regular scavs reward 55 experience, PMCs 120, rogues 225, and raiders 275. And then each of the bosses gives you around 2,000 to 3,000 experience per kill. Also, the followers of the bosses give a nice chunk of XP as well. For example, Senator's guards each give 350 XP, but it varies between the difficulty of each boss and his followers. As I just said, PMCs give you 120 XP per kill. Obviously, that is not a whole lot compared to the threat they pose, so my recommendation would be to try and stay away from fighting PMCs if your only goal is getting those traders maxed out. Obviously, if you have a quest that requires you to kill a certain amount of PMCs, then there is no way around it. Or maybe you just enjoy PvP, then obviously go do your thing. But just from the point of view of maximizing experience and surviving, PMCs are generally the ones responsible for your untimely lobby visitations. As I mentioned earlier, each enemy rewards you a different amount of XP upon killing them. Best part is you can get more than double that by simply getting a headshot. Every single enemy you kill with a headshot grants an additional 1.1x of its normal experience rewards, except PMCs, taking them out with a headshot is 1.2x instead, so it's more. But for example, if you kill a regular scav, you gain 55 XP. If you kill a regular scav with a headshot, you gain 55 experience and then another 60 on top of that as a headshot bonus. So, for example, if you kill 10 scavs, that is 550 XP flat. If you kill them with a headshot, that is 550 plus 600 from headshots, which equals to 1150 XP. So simply 600 extra experience just by aiming at the head. I also mentioned that the bosses net you experience in the thousands. So for example, if you kill Partisan, you gain 3000 XP, but the same headshot bonus applies to the bosses as well. So if you kill them with a headshot, then that 3000 XP turns into 6300 XP. So if possible, take out the bosses with a headshot, but obviously always focus on surviving rather than getting that headshot. Last thing you want to worry about when getting chased by Tagilla is landing a headshot into his mask. But it's still good to know because someone like Reshala is very easy to land a headshot on. Another massive bonus you can get is by simply clicking search on dead bodies. The experience gain usually varies from the amount and type of loot on their bodies. Regular scav can have from 50 experience up to 250 sometimes even more. Usually when they have more than 150 XP, I try and search their pockets fully, since they can have some decent keys and other valuables on them, but I only do that if they are in a relatively safe spot. So if you're out in open, probably best to stay away from them. But you do not have to fully loot them, just go up to them and press search, close the inventory tab and then carry on with your raid. You still get a solid chunk of experience simply by pressing a button. So even if the body is in a bad spot for you to loot, you can still walk up, press F and then just simply leave. Now, once you've done all the hard work of taking out a bunch of scavs and maybe even a few PMCs, hopefully with a headshot, search their bodies for loot, reattach your hands back to your body a few times, you have accumulated a few thousand experience. Next step is simply surviving. Whatever you accumulated during the raid will be multiplied by 1.5x simply by surviving. Just to simplify, if you get 10,000 experience in a raid and then you extract, that 10,000 turns into 15,000 experience. You can get another 15% boost on top of that when you build yourself a library in your hideout. And once again, do not forget about dismantling the wall. Let's talk about questing. Not only is it another source of experience, a great source of experience, you simply have to do quests in order to gain trader rep and to level them up. But if you're new to Tarkov, I would recommend sticking to one quest at a time. But obviously, the most efficient way would be to stack multiple quests that are in the same location. For example, if you just unlocked Ragman, he gives you 2 quests on interchange. One is Make Ultra Great Again, which is kill 25 scavs in interchange. Another one is Big Sale, which requires you to locate a bunch of stores inside of the mall. That is a perfect example of combining quests, as you can progress one while doing the other one. More late game example would be something like Test Drive 2, killing PMCs with the SR2M on interchange. And then you could combine it with Long Line, which requires you to kill PMCs at night, or maybe the quest where you have to hunt Killa. You get the idea. I just wouldn't recommend combining quests that make you visit 2 or 3 different hotspots, as that will obviously increase the chances of running into other PMCs, therefore risking the progress you already made on one of the other quests. Also, Tarkov has a lot of quests that simply require you to hand in found in raid items. Here's an image and it will also be in the description, or you can simply Google EFT wiki quests in order to find it. But basically this image contains every single item you need down the line, so you can start collecting them ahead of time. As of right now, this image only contains the items required for side quests, meaning the main story stuff is not displayed, but hopefully they will add it down the line. Regardless, it is extremely helpful, especially if you have never really made it into the late game before. So if your stash base allows it, try to start collecting this stuff as soon as possible. Also, some of the more generic stuff can overlap. For example, one of the first quests from Therapist is called First in Line, where you have to locate the Emercom station on Ground Zero and hand over 3 found in raid medicine items. It would be wise to hand over items that you do not need later down the line, or basically items that you can easily get more of, like splints, tourniquets, and regular bandages, for example. And obviously they're very common in the raids as well. And I mentioned that because the very next quest requires you to hand over 3 found in raid Salewas. So ideally, you wouldn't want to hand over those Salewas for First in Line. So take a peek at the image every once in a while and see what you can collect ahead of time. Also, those items in the image are showed in order, so the ones at the top you will need before the ones at the bottom. And the items with the grey background do not have to be found in raid, so they can be purchased from the fleet, or if you're blessed with friendship, they can be dropped to you as well. Let's talk about daily and weekly quests. As soon as you reach level 5, you unlock daily quests, and at level 15 you get access to the weeklies. My general rule is that I will never go out of my way to do them until I'm level 46. That's when the experience and rewards increase significantly. Obviously, if you have a weekly to survive 10 raids on reserve and you're gonna go do reserve quests anyway, then it makes sense, of course. But if that same quest was to survive 10 raids on labs, for example, and I maybe have a single quest or no quest at all on labs, I would never bother doing it. You could replace it and try your luck again, but like I said, I personally don't really pay too much attention to them until I'm level 46. The only exception for me to go out of my way to do one of them is if the reward is something I really need. Like for example, if that 10 labs raids gave me 2 found in raid Letexes or a tank battery, then yeah, I would probably go for it. I could turn them into loot runs or just hoard some raider gear or whatever, but you get the idea. So once again, it can be a good source of experience, but generally not worth putting too much effort into it for just 10 to 20,000 experience, in my opinion at least. This might come as a little bit of a surprise, but I wouldn't recommend spending too much time playing as a scav. When it comes to min-maxing, more time you spend in raid as a scavenger, more of that time is taken away from playing with your PMC, which means you get less XP. Also, early days, there are just a ton of people trying to spam maps like Lighthouse or Streets, for example, So sitting in the queue for 10 to 15 minutes just to play that map, it's a waste of your time. My recommendation is if you scav, take it to factory. Go loot a toolbox or two, maybe a few med bags and some of your fellow scavs who have kicked the bucket, and just get out quick. If you scav into factory, you can be in and out in like 5 minutes tops, including the matching time, compared to going to streets where matching alone might take 10 minutes, and then looting and finding your extract will take another 10. Not to mention the threat of running into a PMC and wasting all of that time for nothing. Compared to loading into factory in 2 to 3 minutes, the time loss is massive. That being said though, I do sometimes run interchange or lighthouse while watching a movie or a YouTube video on the side, just looking for some hideout items or a specific quest item, but usually that means I don't really focus on the game too much. I just run around with no audio, collecting stuff, not taking it too serious, and even if I die, I don't really care as I'm not paying too much attention. At some point, you will become one with the worms, and therapists will kindly patch you up for free up until level 7. After that, you gotta pay out of your own pocket. You can instead use one of your own first aid kits to heal yourself by right-clicking and pressing heal all. This will also give you a ton of experience based on the amount of healing you do, 1 XP per health point, plus fixing bleeds and fractures on top of that. So if you have an IFAK or a Salewa that's used up for the most part, don't just discard it or sell it. Throw them into a rig or a container where you can easily access them and just use them up later if you happen to die. You will save some cash from therapists and you will also gain some good old XP. I don't do this forever, obviously. It does get a little bit tedious after a while, but it can be very helpful during those early levels where the XP requirements between levels are a lot smaller. But obviously, if you don't mind doing it, it will stack up a fair bit of XP over the course of however many raids you manage to expire. Some of you already know this, but for some of you it might come as a little bit of a surprise. But a lot of items you need for your quests can be crafted in your hideout. Every single item you craft will be marked as found in raid, meaning if you need to hand over 360 rounders for ice cream cones, for example, you don't need to spam shoreline in hopes of getting those from the sanitar guards, or you don't have to go reserve bunker and fight raiders in hopes of finding some. You can simply go to your hideout, upgrade lavatory to level 2, and then craft them over there. Or if you need Salewas, you can craft those in med station level 1. If you need Iskras for Jaeger, that's nutrition unit level 1. You get the idea. If you're really struggling with something, or you unlock a quest that requires an item that you've barely ever seen, check the EFT wiki for it, scroll to the bottom, and if it can be crafted, there is a specific crafting tab for it, and then you can see the requirements for it as well. And also, you can craft items for your hideout inside of your hideout. So, for example, if you need found in raid tool sets for your gym, you can craft those at workbench level 1. I believe you can craft hoses in lavatory level 1 and so on. So if you need something specific, look around in your station, see if you can craft them, or just check EFT wiki, because that's your best source of information when it comes to the hideout stuff, basically. So instead of spamming med camp on woods and fighting 2 to 3 players each raid for the Salewas or morphines, just craft them in your med station. Also, do not forget that traders need a lot of money spent with them in order for you to increase your loyalty level with them. It is important to sell to traders as much as possible. With the way the flea market works in this game after 1.0, it may sound pretty obvious what I'm about to say, but sometimes you just have to sacrifice money in order to sell items to different traders at times, and you will take a loss. For example, Mechanic gives you the best price for guns and weapon parts, but you also need money spent with Skier, Prepper, and Peacekeeper, and Skier is always one of those guys that I don't really get money spent with unless I go out of my way to sell items to him, and usually those items will be sold at a loss compared to what I would get from Mechanic. Also, Therapist is extremely easy to get money spent with since you purchase meds from her, so sometimes it makes sense to sell food items to Jaeger instead of Therapist. He also has a thing for knives, so if you do a lot of scav runs, keep the knives and then sell those to Jaeger. And also remember that the barters count as money spent. So for example, Jaeger barters for the thermal bag and a dogtag case, and I'm pretty sure every single item can be purchased from the flea market, so you don't even have to go out of your way to find those items yourself. Definitely take advantage of those barters and check what every single trader has to offer. I personally don't do a lot of selling to Peacekeeper. I like to sell weapon parts to other traders, get money spent with them, and then use that money to buy USD from them. Because I'm pretty sure all of you already know you need a lot of USD in the early game. But this way you get money spent with multiple traders at once, and even though it might come as a little bit of a loss, in the long run it will be so much more efficient. Just remember that the money in this game is not that hard to come by, and all you gotta do is survive in your raids. Although some of the items like diaries and SS drives, for example, I do sell to Peacekeeper, as other traders don't want them, and usually I cannot be bothered to list them on the flea market. So at least until I get max loyalty with our bald friend, I just sell them to Peacekeeper. Before insuring your items, think about if you actually want any of those items back. Is it really worth insuring that pistol that you're taking to factory for stirrup, or that level 3 armor, that will easily be replaced if you have the trader level. Getting that stuff back will just clutter your stash, especially if you're on a standard account. You could of course make an argument that you will sell those items back to traders and then you get money spent with them. But are you willing to drop another 10, 20, sometimes even 30k on that armor just to repair it in order to be able to sell it back? Because traders don't want broken things, and if you don't want to pay that money, the only trader you can sell it to is Fence, and you don't need money spent with that guy, so it's kind of pointless. Ensuring tier 5 armor and in-game guns is of course a no-brainer if you're playing in a squad, but if you play with a tier 5 Corund, a fully kitted M4 as a solo, when you get deleted, you will probably never see that stuff ever again. There's always the case of insurance fraud, of course, and insurance does count towards money spent with prepper or therapist, so depending on how confident you are in your ability to survive fights and win fights against PMCs, insurance could be a way to build massive wealth, or it could be a massive waste of money. So this one is completely up to you, but I would say early game stuff is 9 times out of 10 not worth insuring. And to be honest, nothing else really comes to mind at the moment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe leave a like if you got something useful out of it, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.